Hello everybody, this is Wolven Sister and I'm back with another tutorial here. This one I'm going to teach you guys how to do cell shading, and we're going to cell shade some fur here, and we're going to do it on one of my pictures here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to grab the magic wand tool. Yeah, I'm going to dive right in here and teach you guys. And we're going to go on the line art layer that you can see over in the right side at the layer section. And what that's going to do is that's going to select the whole thing, and then we're gonna zoom in, and we're gonna select these other selections that need to be made. So to make additional selections, what you do is you hold the shift key and then you left click. So what I'm doing here is I'm holding the shift key and left clicking for these additional selections. Some I forgot to select, but we'll worry about those later. But we just want to get this done as quickly as possible. But cell shading, it's very simple, it's very simplified, it's not as... I mean, I guess you can make cell shading really detailed if you really wanted to. It's totally up to your preference. But you can also do cell shading traditionally too. It just requires to go lighter than darker. So as you see, I went up to select and inverted the selection. Then I come down to my layer 1 in the colors folder, and now I'm going to fill it with the yellow color because the wolf that's puking down there, she's yellow and she's the main focus of the picture. Alrighty, so we have our subject completely filled in. Clear these, and to do that you just hit on the line art layer again and you go up to edit and clear. Alright, I'm selecting this again and then making these other selections again. But yeah, I mean, cell shading you can do traditionally. It just requires you to start with lighter colors first and then go to darker colors and just remain simplified. Like don't do crazy detailed strokes or anything like that, because that's for realistic drawing. So it is possible to do digitally and traditionally, and this method that I'm going to use, you can kind of use in GIMP and other digital programs, just you might have to move around a little bit for different to see where the toolbars are. But here I'm making a new layer, and we have the same color. We have the same yellow color for this character. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the layer mode up to multiply. And that's going to make the yellow now darker. It's a bit of a cheat. You can technically, if you want, just use a darker shade of yellow. But I like making the cell shading process easier, so I just do the multiply mode. It's just saving you an extra step, and so you don't have to, you know, search around for a darker shade of yellow that doesn't suit your taste. So what I use for cell shading is I use the pen tool. It's the 4th one down on the brushes. And right now I'm going to teach you how to do light source, because whenever you're drawing, you want to have a light source. And light sources are important because that's where you're going to do your main shading. So as you can see, I'm having the light come from the top. So that means the bottom half of this wolf here is going to be darker, because that's where the shadows are going to be at, because that's where the light is not hitting the wolf, if any of that makes sense. There are other tutorials that helped me understand light source more, and I'll link them down in the description below if you want to check them out. They're on DeviantArt or whatever, so you know, they're very easy. So as you can see, I have just the main block of where the shadows are going to be, because the light is coming from the top. So I'm going to show you a little bit different sources of light source, or different directions, I guess, of light sources. So if the light was coming from the left, you would have the right be darker, as I'm showing here in these large blocks. Around the face, around the eyes. These are just the main blocking. It's nowhere near being refined or anything like that. It's just showing you the general idea of where to put your shading when you're trying to decide a light source, if any of that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know down below. This is another example. If the light was coming from below the wolf, her top half would be darker. So yeah, I mean, once you find your light source and once you get used to how it works and everything, the picture just kind of falls together, and you kind of just wing it and figure it out, you know, after trying and error and practicing and all that other stuff. But for this picture, for what I'm doing, is I'm having the light source come from the top. So her bottom half is shaded. And here I'm going to block some more. I'm kind of refining it a little bit. When I'm doing cell shading, I go back and forth between a lot of the pen and the eraser, because the pen helps make it darker and the eraser helps me add in some highlights in the darker parts of the fur. But I'll also teach you how to do highlights in this picture. So I'm doing around the eyes, and the muzzle, the wrinkles in the muzzle. And I'm gonna see if I can speed this up a little bit, because I'm gonna be doing some fur direction or fur flow, whatever you want to call it. And just gonna see if I can speed it up if I can, just to save you guys on time, because it's pretty much self-explanatory. And if you guys have any questions, or if you're curious about fur flow and fur direction, either for cell shaded or for realistic furs, I'll put a link somewhere in the video and also in the description so that you can check it out. So what I did here is I lightened the fur, the shading, and what I did was I went over to the layer section and I hit the opacity tool over here, and I changed it down to 50. That just lightens the shadows a little bit, because with shell shading you're going to start lighter and you're going to go darker. And again, feel free to make it as simplified or as detailed as you want it. There's really no right or wrong answer. I say it every time with art. There's no right or wrong answer with art. So, I mean, if you want to make your cell shading less detailed, definitely go ahead and do it. I tend to add in a lot of detail. It's just a curse. I actually find it hard to simplify a lot of things, so I have to add in a lot of detail. So cell shading just sort of naturally does that for me. I just have to add in a lot of detail. So, I mean, it's really up to your preference, and just do whatever works for you. I mean, as you can see here, I'm following the fur flow that I usually do, and the fur patterns. I don't know what you would call my pattern. It's not really a diamond, it's not really a scale, it's just it's just fur strokes. I mean, it's just the general shape of fur strokes. If you look at an animal and you see their clumps of fur, they kind of look like that a little bit. And it's not perfect, but it gets the job done, I suppose. So, yeah, just do whatever works for you, bud. And the rest will come in time. Another thing too I recommend is if you're doing cell shading, is watch a lot of animated films or look at graphic novels or whatever that have animals in them, and if they're cell shaded, and kind of reference off of them a little bit just to help you understand cell shading a little bit more, because it does take time to get used to it. It took me a little bit. But you know, I started out with realistic fur strokes and realistic, you know, fur layering and stuff, and then cell shading just sort of came later when I got used to digital art. So what I did here is that you see it's a little bit darker. I made same color, same yellow color. Don't change the yellow color at all unless you want to for whatever your character. But for my character, she's yellow. So what I did is I just kept the yellow color, and I made a third layer and I made it into the multiply mode, and then I changed the opacity down to 65. And what we're doing is we're just enhancing the shadows a little bit more. You don't have to fill in all of the previous cell shading on the previous layer. You just have to kind of blend it so it looks natural, I guess. So it, well, not really natural, just more like it transitions. That's the word. It transitions into the shadows a little bit more, because again, depending on the level of detail you want to go with cell shading, you just have to you have to have them transition into the shadows. So as you can see here, if you see at the top of the spine, I don't go any further than that because I don't need to, because I want that to just be the way it is, because if I add too much, it's going to look a little bit cluttered. That's like the best way I can describe it. It's just gonna look a little bit cluttered. So I just keep it where it's at, and I just try and shade the bottom part more rather than the top part, because that's where the light is, and you want it to show the light. You want the shadows to contrast a whole bunch. And you just keep on doing that. You just keep on making multiply layers, and you just keep on changing the opacity depending on how dark you want it. And then you add in the natural, like, markings if your character has markings or whatever. And you just keep going that same route until you have it the way you want it to look. Here I'm going to teach you how to do some highlights really quick. So highlights is I have it on a different layer, and I put it on the screen mode, on the layer mode. You just put it to screen, and what you can do also is that you can change it. You can blur it a little bit by going up to the filter layer and hitting Gaussian or something like that, or you can use the airbrush tool in the brushes section. And your ultimate goal is to kind of get rid of most of the line art, but again, it's really up to your preference. That's if you want to get rid of most of the line art, or all the line art, or none of the line art. It's really all up to your preference. But this is the finished version of my cell shaded piece. As you can see, I put in a lot of detail. So it's really all up to your preference. You can do less, you can do more. But that's all I have to really teach you for now. I'll do another video next week, and I will see you next time. Bye!